Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, everything is different now than the last time we spoke. We now know who is starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack in the race for the starting quarterback job at Ohio State. And Tony, frankly, I was shocked.
Shocked. Very big surprise. The biggest surprise was that Ryan Day actually said a name as to somebody who is taking charge and separating themselves. Kinda. And that person is Tom.
Coincidentally, it's the same person that came in during the Sugar Bowl last year, the same person who was pretty much 100% of the time been repping first throughout the spring and the summer. That person is CJ Stroud, and I mean...
Oh, really?
Yeah, if I woke up tomorrow with my head sewn to the carpet, Tony, I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now.
It was... Now, Ryan Day did say that he wanted to have an idea by this point, so just the fact that he actually went through with it and put a name out there was still a bit of a surprise, even though he said it. But no, CJ Stroud is not the starter yet. There is still time. The job is not yet complete. He's still got another scrimmage. Mm-hmm. I mean, this entire next week of football is going to be very important, so anything could happen between now and then.
They don't need a starter for another 17 days. I mean, that's why I have the countdown at the beginning of every morning scoop show to remind Ryan Day how many days there are until he needs a starting quarterback, because you don't need a starting quarterback today. There's not a game, so therefore there's no reason to rush.
You do a countdown before the show?
I have actually started doing that fairly recently, yes.
I've never noticed. I should listen to the show, but I don't, because it's not mine. I'm not part of it, except for...
When you are.
And when I am. That's the only time I listen, but I only listen to my parts. So I would miss everything that you were saying. So yes. But number 2, quarterback Tom, not so clear yet. That job is still up in the air. It's funny, we talked about the quarterbacks, and we'll get to Quinn Ewers and asking Ryan Day all these questions, and then somebody was like, what about the second quarterback? Who is that? And that's when Ryan Day said, yeah, that job's still completely up in the air. Tom, I think it's going to be one of two guys.
Probably. I mean, Jagger, LaRoe, and who else?
I'm thinking, I was going to say Jagger, LaRoe twice. So.
Okay.
So one of 3 guys.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I mean, I think that probably you have not had to read real hard between the lines to get the sense for who we were pretty sure was going to be the starting quarterback. And when I had Nevada Buck on the morning scoop on Tuesday morning, I'm just going to direct this to you because I know you haven't listened yet. He said it's going to be CJ Stroud. It's going to be CJ Stroud. Whether they announce it or not, it's going to be CJ Stroud. That has kind of been leaving last season. I think that was everyone's assumption. Going through spring ball, that was everyone's assumption. Preseason magazines, Phil Steele had CJ Stroud number 7 on his preseason Heisman list. Everyone's sort of been assuming it's CJ Stroud. It's going to be CJ Stroud. The backup job, there's actually a little bit of intrigue there. That one is, you're kind of getting the practice reports where it's like, the guys are kind of jockeying for position a little bit between Jack Miller and Kyle McCord. We'll see where this stands right now. I mean, by all indication, and, not the coach speak nonsense that you kind of get when you're talking to the coaching staff, that is legitimately kind of it is literally and figuratively an open competition right now. To me, there's probably, you can read into that a little bit, that one guy had a year of a head start and the other guy has now caught up to him and is, at that point, if you're going to do the trajectory thing, like one guy's kind of going up like this and the other guy is maybe going up like that. So that kind of tells me where this might end up. But right now, those lines are still pretty much intersecting.
Well, and we know in the past that once the backup quarterback wins the job, it's kind of settled. Mm-hmm. And Urban Meyer used to say, you don't have time to continue battling for the job once it's settled. I don't know that this will necessarily get to that point. Will it be so settled that then you can't, like Quinn Ewers or say Jack Miller comes up short, they can't compete for the backup job later on. To me, I think it's too close to where maybe things fluctuate, especially if, say, Jack Miller wins the job and Kyle McCord is still learning. Does he catch up at some point during the season? And it's clear that there's now a separation between 2 and 3.
Yeah, and you're probably going to have games where you have an opportunity for multiple backup quarterbacks to play and multiple backup quarterbacks to, you can't have a competition thing. That's much more about practices. And at that point, the reps are the reps, and you have to, you don't have the luxury of having a ton of reps that you can give to a backup, because this is not JT Barrett in 2017 where it's like, this guy has taken 15 trillion reps as Ohio State's quarterback in practice. Like, you can kind of divide things up a little bit more behind him maybe. But even then, that year, that's the year you're talking about with Urban Meyer. You know, Joe Burrow breaks his hand in training camp, right about now, basically, in training camp. So therefore, Dwayne Haskins starts the year as the backup quarterback. Therefore, Dwayne Haskins finishes the year as the backup quarterback. And that was a year when you had a, fifth-year quarterback, fourth-year starter who had as many practice reps as you could possibly humanly need at Ohio State. This year with a starting quarterback who's whoever it is going to be, it's still a mystery. Whoever that starting quarterback is going to be, it's a guy who's got freshman eligibility, who's, presumably in his second season, and has literally not thrown a college pass yet in a game. So you're going to need those reps. So there's fewer to go around for the backups.
Yeah, and that number 2 guy has to also prepare for the game that week. Mm-hmm. And you don't have enough reps for the starter and the number 2 guy. You don't have enough reps for the number 3 guy, who sometimes is, maybe spending some time over at the scout team. Mm-hmm. I don't think they need that this year because they'll have 4 scholarship quarterbacks, and you would think that now's a good time to talk about Quinn Ewers. Maybe Quinn Ewers gets some of that scout team work. Today was his first practice. We know he practiced because, one, Ohio State tweeted out a picture of him catching a snap decked out in his uniform. 2, we saw him walk in from the practice field. So you put those 2 together. No, we did not actually see him practice, but it sure seems like he did. I think Ryan Day actually may have confirmed that he did practice, but things are so early on. I think what one of the things Day said was, well, he's still learning where to stretch. Mm-hmm. And when we saw him come in, he's like talking to somebody, and like a staffer or somebody, and they're pointing into like the WAC into a room in there, like you're going to want to go in there, then you're going to want to take a right. So like, he is still learning the facility, which is one of the other things Ryan Day said about him.
Right. I mean, this is your first day at a job, and you think back to your first day in a semester in college. It's like, all right, good. It's syllabus day for Quinn Ewers today. Like, all right, hopefully we're out of class in about 20 minutes. We get the syllabus, and then we can go get lunch at Pita Pit or something. Like that's. He obviously stayed for the full practice. Was actually the rest of the quarterbacks came in. He was still outside for a little while longer. He came in a little bit later.
Did he get lost?
Probably. I mean, you would think he'd be able to follow the other quarterback. So I assume he did something else he was doing outside. But it is literally like, hi, you're gonna sign your HR paperwork, and here's where the lunchroom is, mm-hmm. and these are the holidays you get off, and all that kind of stuff. Like this is your first day at a new job, and so he is very much getting the lay of the land. And they were literally showing him, okay, you put your shoulder pads here in this bin as you come off the practice field. Like that's where it is today for Quinn Ewers, which, people, I think there is probably a small subsection of Ohio State fans that's going, the number 1 quarterback in the 2022 class and the highest rated recruit ever in Ohio State history. Certainly he has an opportunity to, earn some playing time this year. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but I mean, absolutely nothing Ryan Day said today gave me even the slightest hint that was imminent in any way right now. That this is like I came away from today thinking, like, the chances of him seeing a drive or 2 at the end of the Akron game are maybe even lower mm-hmm. than I had thought earlier.
Yeah, he was asked if Ewers would play this year, and his first answer was, I don't know. And you would think, like, the answer we would expect is, yeah, we'll find some time for him somewhere. Mm-hmm. But that's not what he said. Though he did add that it's a long year, and it's a long time between now and January, and anything can happen, so they'll see. But when the first answer is, I don't know, mm-hmm. that's not nothing. That's a little bit of something that I just expected, of course, because that's what we've been thinking. Of course he's going to play. Mm-hmm. And whether it's 4 games or more or less, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, he's going to play. I still think he's going to play. But maybe it's, maybe it's not quite as early, but still, like, there's going to be some ugly blowouts.
Well, and I think back to, was it 2018, when Chris Chuganoff transferred in from West Virginia and was the top backup for Justin Fields. And, and that was basically like the entire quarterback room was brand spanking new that year. And so Chris Chuganoff transferred in like, it was like August. He basically arrived, right before training camp in 2018. And he was, he had the opportunity to play, I think, at the end of like the Rutgers game. He kind of got a series when it was 52-3, and the whole game was over, and it was just like, well, okay, he can come in and hand off a few times. I think that's something that would, now how much does they answer the question of will he play this year? Is that playing, like coming in and taking 3 handoffs at the end of a 49-point win? If that's the case, then yeah, I think he could absolutely be in on the field against Akron. Is he going to have, if they have the same 4 scholarship quarterbacks at the time of the Akron game, is he going to have jumped any of them? No, I do not. I do not think he will have jumped any of the other guys. Is it possible someone transfers between now and then? Sure, it's possible. And if it does, then maybe that makes it more possible. Or maybe that means Jagger LaRoe or JP Andrade is getting those snaps in the Akron game instead, which is also a possibility.
Does he play more than, say, Jack Miller or C.J. Stroud last year? I think is that about what we're thinking?
That's probably about what I'm thinking. Those guys, there were not that many garbage time opportunities. Mm-hmm. Ohio State just simply didn't blow out teams the way that you normally expect. You normally expect, and it was like the Rutgers game was over with 5 minutes left in the second quarter, and then they just kind of screwed around, and Rutgers scored enough touchdowns that it was just kind of like, it reminded me a little of the 2017 Illinois game where Ohio State kind of screwed around, turned the ball over, and then Urban Meyer got ticked off and put some guys back in, so you didn't get to see the backups in that game. That was that monsoon game, if you remember that. But it's kind of like that, where they had opportunities to get backups in, and then they didn't actually get to play because the games were a little too close to screw on with that. And you didn't have the non-conference games. You didn't have the Bowling Green game last year that they would have won by 900 points, but they didn't play it, so therefore you missed that opportunity.
I know usually we go like position by position and run down, but let's talk about Pala'i Naoteote, who is not yet cleared. They are optimistic that he can be cleared, and it's still like he's paying his own way. There's some classes that he had to take apparently, and he's doing everything they're asking him to do. He's getting reps, but he is still not cleared. And when will that happen? I guess it either happens this week or next week or the week after, or it doesn't happen, Tom.
Well, and it has to happen. You would certainly assume that there has to be a decision one way or the other before the season. Because if you're going to drag this out, and like, what possible decision could you have to make that would drag this out into the season? It's not like there's, I'm sure they have the paperwork in at this point.
Oh, do you think?
So it's just,
shoot, we forgot to put the paperwork in.
Oh, the NCAA, right? I forgot about them. Yeah, clearly they've put the paperwork in at this point. It seems pretty straightforward. Like, either you're going to, abide by the current rules, or you're going to decide, no, it is a hard and fast dark red line to us that he put his name in the transfer portal before we granted the one-time transfer exception. Therefore, he's not eligible for the one-time transfer exception. Now, that seems like a very, call me a radical players' rights, apologist, but that seems like that should be a pretty straightforward decision. But it continues to drag on for some stupid reason.
Let me be a devil's advocate. The card says moops.
That's true. The card does say moops. That is tough but fair. And there is not a more moops organization in the entire country than the NCAA.
Their hands are tied.
Sorry, I don't know
here,
what to tell you.
moops.
I'm very sorry about that. Yeah, it seems so straightforward. It seems like it should be, but it's a little weird to me that it hasn't been resolved already, because it seems so straightforward to me. And maybe that's just the NCAA. Just, well, sorry, it's halfway down the pile. We haven't gotten that far down the pile, but while they're getting through whatever nonsense is at the top of that pile, you're burning camp days. They're not giving him first team reps because they don't know. And you're not going to waste first team reps when you have a whole linebacker unit full of guys who have never started before. You're not going to waste reps on a guy that you're not 100% sure will be able to start. If he can, once he's cleared, I think you may see him getting some more of those reps. But right now, Ryan Day basically said, like, you can't run him with the ones, because it's like these are precious reps. They count every single rep. These are precious reps. They can't take a chance that they're going to be giving these to a guy who's just not eligible through no fault of his own.
Speaking of linebackers, did you happen to see Mitchell Melton walk in today?
I did not notice Mitchell Melton.
big. Like we know he's a big linebacker. He just looks like he's even bigger now and continues to grow. He looks like a defensive end more than a linebacker. Just
and he's
by the way he walks.
Yeah, and he is someone who we're not expecting to see play this year. He has an injury issue that so he's not anyone who we've seen practice this summer. He's not someone we're necessarily expecting to see play this year, and that's someone who maybe that's going to be interesting. Where maybe next spring is he with Larry Johnson instead of with Al Washington,
or with Kevin Wilson at tight end. Take the Cade Stover route. The Buckeyes scrimmage, their first scrimmage was on Saturday. They will have their second scrimmage, I believe, this coming Saturday, and more stuff will shake out at that point. Ryan Day said, between 15 and 20 guys graded out a champion. I saw Bryson Shaw's dad tweeted out that Bryson was one of the safety, was one of the guys who graded out a champion. So that happened. You figure out some more stuff. They got to see some good film on guys. Ryan Day was asked if he feels good about the defense, and when I saw him react to the question, to me it was like, yes, I want to talk about the defense, and then he did. The way you saw the reaction, to me it was like, oh, let me tell you, friends, for you it was different.
Yeah, to me it was, he had 15 straight minutes of quarterback questions, and it was like, oh, thank the Lord, I finally get to talk about something other than quarterbacks and a guy who's been here for 15 minutes. That was my interpretation of it. Now, that being said,
you are a hater.
Number one, yes. Number two, had Nevada Buck on the morning scoop this morning. It sounds like the defense is holding its own a little bit more, which that's good. Spring practice, fall camp, these are all very zero-sum for a college football team. Zero-sum is think of like a pie. And if it's zero-sum, it means Tony and I have divided the pie. And if I am going to get more of the pie, it means it has to come from Tony. So if it's good for me, it's bad for him. There's not like win-win in fall camp necessarily. So I'm going to need that pie, by the way. The way this plays out in fall camp is every time you hear Travion Henderson has rushed for another 70-yard touchdown, that means Ohio State's defense has given up another 70-yard touchdown. That's not, that's good, except in the way that it's bad. So if the defense is now kind of making improving to the point where now you're starting to see better results from the defense, that's good. That has to be good. I mean, the offense is playing very well. You kind of want the offense to play pretty well. Football is a sport that is based on offense right now. I mean, how many times have we seen Bill Green talk about the fact that you have to be able to score 40 points in college football playoff games to win? You need an explosive offense. Ohio State has an explosive offense. If the defense is better than it was last year, that is only good news.
This weekend, I think, was one of the first times the entire secondary was out there and healthy, which Ryan Day said. Kerry Combs had mentioned that during practice. Seven Banks was back out there. Corners are playing well, according to Dave, pressuring the receivers, making plays. I know the corners have been a question mark, but if they're all healthy, I don't think they're as much of a question mark. I'm still wondering about the safeties and Josh Proctor, because we know how important he is in that role. But just from my take, it sure seems like things are progressing as they want. There are still question marks. That Ryan Day said the linebackers are probably going to rotate this year, and why wouldn't they when you've only really got two spots and you've got six guys or so that you want to play and they can all do different things, so get them involved. But the back seven seems like things are going well, and the reports, the intel that we hear about the practice reports is, Craig Young and the bullet, and that all of that is working well. And so that's going to be, if it can work, it's going to be a bit of a different defense to watch this year, and frankly, it needs to be.
Well, I mean, the flip side of the explosive offense is what dominates college football right now. Is if you have a bad defense, you are going to get torched. And this is every Oklahoma team in the last 10 years. Just think about how the playoff typically goes for them. It doesn't go well, and it doesn't go for very long. That was Ohio State last year. Like, the offense was pretty good, and if Trey Sermon had not broken his collarbone, they're probably in the mid to upper 30s against Alabama. But there's another side of the ball there, and they never got off the field against that Alabama offense last year in the national championship game, to the point where it would have been a closer game. It would have been a much more interesting, more competitive game. But with the defense playing the way it was, that was pretty clearly not going to happen on that night for Ohio State. So many of the issues there. I mean, the defensive line was fine last year. The defensive line was not the issue last year. And the linebackers were, solid for the most part. They got put in some bad positions because there was, the defensive backfield was just a smoking crater for a bunch of last year. If that's better, and it sounds like that's better, it doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be the 2019 Ohio State defense. If it's just better, if it's just okay to good, that goes a long, long, long way to getting this team to national championship caliber.
I think you get the 2017 defense might be good enough. And they gave up some plays, but not like the 2018 defense or the 2020 defense. So one of the things going in that Kevin Wilson wanted to see was the physicality. Afterwards, Ryan Day said today that he slept a lot better Saturday night because he saw the physicality that he wanted from this team. And everybody knows how talented they are, but it's about that physicality and it's about winning stuff up front. And that's the difference between Oklahoma and Alabama and Ohio State. And that was the difference last year between Ohio State and Clemson. And that's why we really haven't needed to talk about the defensive line, because I think everybody feels good about it. And that's where Ohio State was able to take advantage of Clemson last year up front against both sides, both the Clemson defensive line and the offensive line. And Ohio State was able to win up front. Offensive line still sounds like Thayer Munford has been out.
Yeah.
So that, while Ryan Day didn't seem too concerned, I don't know that he would share that concern with us. But the fact that he is not practicing much or has been held out is a little bit of a concern, to a lot of a concern, and may explain why there's been a little bit of, let's try this movement out. I wonder if those two things aren't entirely unrelated, even though it was supposedly Thayer Munford's idea. So maybe they are unrelated, but it's just nice that they can do this.
Well, it's at the very least an ancillary benefit to it is now, instead of needing to find a new left tackle, you need to find a new left guard. Well, they have a ton of good choices at left guard if Thayer Munford is unable to play. And this isn't concerning yet, but you're getting to the point where it's concerning adjacent.
Yeah.
That, we've talked about a bunch of guys, Garrett Wilson, for example, sitting out in individual practices. When it's a veteran guy sitting out one practice or taking it easy one practice, you can read almost nothing into that and be fine. When it's several practices in a row and it's someone who's had injury issues in the past, it's yeah, okay, give it 2 more days. We're supposed to be watching practice on Wednesday. If Thayer Munford's not out there Wednesday, okay, now you're pushing a week. The game, the first game of the season will be 15 days off at that point. At that point, okay, you maybe raise your hand and go, yeah, this is maybe something you got to keep an eye on. You do have options. I mean, then you're going with a line that's probably Nick Petitfer at left tackle, maybe Matt Jones at left guard, Harry Miller at center, Paris Johnson at right guard, and DeJuan Jones at right tackle. Does this help? You hear these kind of transfer rumors floated every time a guy is, has been here for a few years and then doesn't win a job. That you would think that would certainly keep Matt Jones engaged, interested, for him to have real active opportunity to potentially, be a starter this year. That's probably, a sort of a side benefit there, but yeah, I think you're not very far off from that being this is officially concerning now.
Yeah, and even if we don't see Thayer Munford out there on Wednesday, it is still 2 weeks. I mean, and a lot can happen in 2 weeks. We see guys miss one game and they're gone. They're ready to come back. So we'll see what happens there. Looking through the notes here, we talked with special teams coordinator Parker Fleming as well. The kicking battle is pretty much up in the air between Noah Ruggles and Jake Seibert. The difference there is whoever's the most consistent guy, basically from 25 to 40 yards. Outside of 40 and up, they're going to look at going for it depending on the yardage or pooching. And so they're not really looking for, we need the guy that can hit that 54-yarder. That's not really anything that should never be what you game plan for,
right.
and especially if you have an aggressive offense. So they just want to see guys, they'll take the guy who continues to hit the uprights from 35 yards out. Doesn't have to be a concern, or they don't really have to think about it. It's just an automatic guy. And so far, Noah Ruggles has been consistent, and he's had the job before at North Carolina. lost the job, probably doesn't want to lose this one. I mean, he came here to win it. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. It's one of those things where you don't want it lasting multiple weeks, because then guys are just inside their own heads, and they're not thinking about the kick. They're thinking about missing the kick or what's going to go wrong, or, just everything but what they should be thinking about. So, you wonder, will somebody be able to step up?
Well, sir, if you are trying to imply that college kickers are some sort of head cases, sir, I'm not sure where that might be coming from. One thing that was interesting to me about that conversation with Parker Fleming was he was asked, was this, you guys were actively out looking for a kicker? Or were you, was this just sort of like a transfer of opportunity where Noah Ruggles kind of raised his hand and said, hey, would you guys be interested? And you looked and went, yeah, we got a scholarship, what the heck? And his answer was, I don't remember.
Yes, that's right. I was going to tell you what his answer was, but that was it.
Which, to me, we constantly hear about how brilliant Parker Fleming is. And he's got this incredible mind, and, an encyclopedia of knowledge. It seems like if you go back, staff editions at Buckeye Scoop, generally, I can remember 6 months ago, like, hey, here's how this person was brought in. I certainly, if we have proven one thing to the audience over the years, I certainly am no genius. So what are we, Tony, to make of the fact that Parker Fleming does not remember how Noah Ruggles happened to end up at Ohio State?
Well, an encyclopedia of knowledge, if you open up an actual encyclopedia of knowledge, there's nowhere to input memory. So it's just all that's in there is all that's in there. You can't add to it. So
that's
you want your cake and you want to eat it too.
Sorry, this is the K volume of the encyclopedia. That's the one of the kickers. This is the S volume of. So I can tell you all about Switzerland and Swaziland and Swiss cake rolls and spaghetti, but there's nothing about kickers in here. So I'm sorry, I don't know.
So we'll see what happens there. Punter is Jesse Marco, had his black stripe removed. He's good there. Kickoff returns are a number of guys. DeMario is the back there still. Mentioned Travion Henderson possibly. We saw him in rotating in with the ones at practice last week, and when that was mentioned to Parker Fleming, he's like, well, you may have seen that, but we're rotating everybody, so don't read into anything. Anytime you see somebody with the ones, just totally ignore that, because we don't want anybody to know anything about anything. That's from the coaches, not us.
That seems like the takeaway there I had was we need to be able to watch more practice, because we're getting only these small snippets and then we have to draw conclusions from those, and we're drawing the wrong conclusions. So it seems like we probably need to see more practice in order to have a more holistic view of how things are going, and therefore be able to draw better conclusions.
Draw up a proposal.
Sorry, Parker said we had to be here. Sorry.
There's a lot of jobs still open all over special teams, including Tough Borland's old middle shield spot as the punt protector, stuff like that you don't really ever think about going on. Gunners is a big one. There's going to be a rotation of gunners, and Chris Olave will still be doing it. And he mentioned Julian Fleming is another guy where it's not going to be the same guy every time, because if you have your receivers doing it and they just ran a 60-yard go on third down and it fell incomplete, you don't want them out there running the gunner. So it's about having the best player for that particular play. So there's going to be a rotation there. But that's anything else with the special teams?
The middle shield thing was interesting to me, because that was a specific conversation about that, because that was Tough Borland's job for a million years, and now Tough Borland is gone. We always talk about the gunners. That's like this prestige position at Ohio State, which is not really normal. Like, you don't normally have Devin Smith or Terry McLaurin, or like guys like that. And now Chris Olave, Jeff Okuda, Paris Campbell,
DeJuan Jones.
I don't think I've seen him out there yet. But now Chris Olave, who is potentially like first-round NFL draft pick wide receiver. Terry McLaurin is like NFL star wide receiver, and he was a punt gunner so much more famously than he was a wide receiver at Ohio State at this, through much of his career.
Even his pin tweet is still about like it's blocking.
Blocking three guys, So the gunner position, like, it has this like weird place in Ohio State football lore. The middle shield position is kind of interesting because that's like this like completely forgotten, but also very important because if you let a guy go through, that's how you get a punt blocked.
Try having a bad one.
And, he was naming some of the names and was kind of nodding along, and he got to Jeremy Ruckert, and I was like, Jeremy Ruckert is working potentially as the middle shield guy, which, that's someone who, again, potentially like a first-round pick next year. That's like the slightly more thankless version of punt gunning. And for him to be in that mix, I think that illustrates pretty well exactly how seriously they take this stuff and how, how this is something that guys really do want to be a part of and really, really want to contribute in any way they can. Yeah,
it's a starting role. It's a big role, and it's known about inside the program, not always outside the program. Well, I want to go back real quick to offense. Ryan Day said nobody's really stepping forward, moving forward at running back. Master Teague has had his best week. Travion Henderson, we know, continues to shine. Mayan Williams had a good week. Everybody had a good week. Marcus Crowley, I think, had a good scrimmage. So he's happy there. But I even at this point, running back to me seems like there's a little bit of, maybe not mystery, but the fact that nobody is separating, or they're saying nobody is separating, tells me that kind of confirms what we've been saying about the three-headed monster that Ohio State will have at running back until maybe it's just two, and then maybe it's just one.
Yeah, I think for sure I'm expecting three guys to get 8+ carries in that first game, in before garbage time in that first game. Master Teague, Mayan Williams, Travion Henderson. I think all three of those guys are going to very clearly be significant contributors on the ground this year. It's interesting to me, Evan Pryor lost his black stripe over the weekend, so that tells you significant growth and development has occurred on his end. They view him as someone who's going to be a contributor this year. Marcus Crowley, seemed like someone who maybe was sort of sliding down that depth chart a little bit, and Ryan Day made a point to shout him out today as someone who had maybe that was a little bit of a kick in the butt with him, that now he's kind of ready to contribute in a little more meaningful way. So yeah, that was interesting to me, but yeah, I would be, in the same way that we've kind of known all along and basically told you all along, like, yeah, it's going to be C.J. Stroud as a starting quarterback. The running back position is very much like, yeah, man, there could be any of three guys taking that first snap of the year or having the most carries in that first game of the year, and it wouldn't really surprise me.
Yep, like I told you, first quarter it's one guy, second quarter it's the second guy, third quarter it's the third guy, fourth quarter, Tom, it's the guy who did the most in those first three quarters. Just like we do it on a video game.
Maybe.
That's exactly how Ohio State does their stuff, like the stuff on a video game. Anything else before we get out of here?
We didn't talk about the punters, sir.
I said Jesse Mirko's fine.
Yeah.
And he'll be good, and things are going well. He's been consistent.
Yeah, lost his black stripe. Lost his black stripe, which was, I think you asked Parker Fleming, like, what does a punter have to do to lose his black stripe? And it was, basically he's integrated well with the team. He's older. He's a little bit older than your typical freshman. He's come in, he's been nice, had a good mature approach. Kicker sounds like it's sort of an open position battle. Punter sounds very much like he didn't say Michael O'Shaughnessy's name at all today. Yeah. It sounds like that is Jesse Mirko's job, and they're pretty happy with it. He was asked about, rugby-style kicking versus traditional punting. It sounds like they'll probably do a little bit of both. And he did say, you can tell he played, Australian rules football, because I think Ryan Day was talking about that. He's a little more physical than your traditional punter. What Ryan Day said, he said it in a very funny way. It was just kind of like,
he's got something to him.
Well, it was basically like, yeah, you don't really expect toughness from a punter, more or less. But
he's got an edge to him.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a little amusing as well.
And he's taken to the culture, and that was another reason that he was able to get his black stripe removed. I hope it wasn't just one of those things like, do Crocodile Dundee for us, and then if you do that, we'll get the black stripe removed, because I think there's got to be something newer than Crocodile Dundee. Plus, these kids they don't even know about it, so they wouldn't even understand it.
That's how I lost my black stripe, mate.
And on that note, I'm just going to smash this video camera and this entire setup. That will do it, Tom. Do you have anything else?
Ryan Day did mention that his Little League, his hometown Little League, Manchester North Little League in New Hampshire won the New England or Northeast Championship. They're going to the Little League World Series. He said both he and Nina, his wife, played North. I almost said North Newark Little League. That's Licking County. That's not North Manchester Little League. And he was asked, who was a better player, he thought he had Nina by just that much. So he was Ryan Day's scouting report as a little league baseball player. Okay, now we're done.
Very competitive guy that we've seen that in all the old clips of the high school basketball, high school football. My little league was too small to actually like be part of the little league, which is unfortunate because we would have won states. You know, I could have hit a baseball over those mountains. But anyway, Tom, let's go ahead and
all those Northwest Ohio mountains. Yes, go on.
I mean, we have hills, a hill. We have a mound. Anyway, that'll do it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. A reminder, do check out BuckeyeScoop.com. Become a member of Ask the Insiders. Check out the Ask the Insiders board. Become a member. Been a crazy month. All kinds of practice updates. Scrimmage update blew up. After every practice, round about, 2 in the afternoon or so, 3 in the afternoon, it seems like a report starts coming in, or sometime in the afternoon about that day's practice. So it has been almost without fail. And if you're interested in what's going on the practice field, the Ask the Insider message board is the place to find that out. Also, you can check out BuckeyeScoop.com/YouTube. No, YouTube.com/BuckeyeScoop for all of these videos. And as Tom said, we may get to see all of the practice on Wednesday, which would be pretty awesome. And I'm guessing we will have something to say after that.
Probably. It'll be interesting to see. We'll have a few things to watch during that practice. And, who's practicing? What order are they practicing in? What formations are they? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to keep an eye on.
When you get to watch an entire practice, then you can chart you chart like the one-on-ones. This corner beat this defensive back from this quarterback, or this offensive lineman stoned this defensive end, and it's like there's so much to watch and a lot to talk about, and it's a long practice report, and it's just a lot of work, Tom. I'm talking myself out of it now. I don't know if I want it, but if we get it, we'll talk about it. We'll have it here. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys later.